let's look into AMD's qualitative analysis. When AMD was initially set up, it was actually a fab company. That means they also design and make their own semiconductor chip. But then they actually spin off their manufacturing site to become global foundries. So right now they only focus on chip design, software support, and also marketing. So the products are actually separated into hardware offerings, which are all those chips, and also they offer some software solutions. So now the products are mainly used in all these devices and also markets. And it was incorporated since 1969, which is a much longer history compared to NVIDIA. And they actually gone public in 1972. When we go to AMD website and we click under the products, we will see these 4 main categories. Let's look at the first 3. Processor, in short, is the brain of the PC. Then followed by GPU. So for GPU, it's mainly for graphics. Then followed by adaptive SoC, system on chip. So it actually integrates a lot of different components onto a single chip or the electric circuit. Then followed by FPGA, programmable integrated circuits. So they actually allow customization and also optimization. So they are mainly used in scientific research, aerospace and defense science. Next, let's look at accelerators, SOMs, and also smart NICs. So accelerator here is actually used for high performance computing, which is mainly for artificial intelligence, AI, machine learning, or deep learning. So they are actually GPU accelerators, and their brand is actually AMD Instinct. And system on modules. So from here, it looks similar to system on chip, but actually they are actually a pre-designed compact chips to be used on robotics, Internet of Things, edge AI devices. So these chips actually is being pre-designed already, then they just integrate it into their existing system, such as these robots, for them to work compared to smartphones or tablets. And finally, smart NIC is actually mainly for network performance, which we will cover about data centers. So now we are done with the hardware. Let's look at what are the software or where are the chips being used. So for market platforms, the chips are mainly used in these 6 main market platforms, and the chips are actually offered these industry solutions, these various industry solutions. So that means they not only design the chips, but they also actually offer to design the industry solutions as well. Okay, so now let's look at the numbers. Here we'll look at AMD's 4 main business segments, which is data center, client, gaming, and embed. For FY 2022, AMD actually generated 23.6 billion. So you can see that each of the segments are actually contributing quite equally. Then followed by geographical. So most of the revenue actually comes from US and also China. However, as we discussed about this topic regarding the CHIP Act or the chip sanction war between US and China, so will this portion be affected? This is something that we, as investors, we should take note of. Now let's look at their annual revenue trend. Early days, it's being a bit flat, but then since 2021, it has been moving quite incremental. So next, we will also look to earnings per share, and we see that in the early days, AMD is actually in a loss. But then since 2017 onwards, they have been on a positive increasing trend before a sharp downturn in 2022. So now we will also look at their cash flow. So cash flow here, we will first look at their operating cash flow. When it's positive, that means there's cash coming in from the business. If it's negative, it means that the company is actually bleeding money to keep the operation running. So here is the 0 line. So we can see that in the early days, AMD is actually bleeding money to keep the operation running. But luckily for them, things turns better, and we can see that since 2016, it is slowly becoming positive before a sharp increment from 2018 onwards. And this is because since 2017, they launched their main product, which is the Zen processor, the CPU, that turned the tide around. And then we will also look at their free cash flow. So here, free cash flow is actually the cash that the company has after the capital expenditure was being minus off from operating cash flow. So here's the 0 line, as similar to operating cash flow is also below the 0 line. But then since 2019 onwards, it has been on a positive trend. So here, this is the debt to equity ratio of the AMD, and we can see that in the early days, AMD is actually incurring very high debt. But then as days pass on, we see that since 2019, they managed to bring down their debt below 0.5 and keep as flat as possible. And it's been below 0.5, which means that AMD is actually quite low debt currently.